What's going on, guys? It's Justice here, and this is a video I've wanted to make for a couple of weeks now since Jagex are honing in on this road to restoration, and one of the elements that they're focusing on this year is UI. We're going to start seeing iterations of UI improvements as we go throughout the year. We've not had a lot of sighting on the specifics that they want to tackle, so maybe a lot of the things I'm about to cover, it's on their roadmap, and it'd be fantastic if it is. So first off is just a general comment that I would like to see some stylized changes with the UI, infographic amendments, logo changes. You know, I'm open to some major changes to this. Maybe just put it on a beta world, see how players feel about it before rolling it out live. You know, but ultimately keeping it true to the medieval high fantasy MMORPG theme, and of course making sure that it feels RuneScapey. We have what is termed in other MMORPGs, the unit frames, but the problem with RuneScape is that the unit frame, aka the important bars that we like to track during combat, you know, in this game, so PVM, our health points are HP, also referred to as constitution, our energy bars referred to as adrenaline, which we have to track in order to dump on our spenders, our ability spenders, our prayer bar, and then we also have the summoning bar. They are all compacted into the main action bar. And I just think this is an absolute bizarre decision, you know, and it's something which players have just put up with and got used to, and they've built up muscle memory to cope with it. But there's no customizability. You can't increase the size of those bars. You can't separate it out and put it somewhere different away from those abilities for those players who would like to do that. I think this is a really clear improvement that should come into the game. We should be able to, those attributes should be separated from each other, and we should be able to customize those and move those around the screen wherever we want. The next thing, which might be controversial, and I'm really open to hearing from players on this, whether you think this would be useful, because there may be a ton of players who just don't even know these things exist. Like if you've only ever played RuneScape, you won't even think, your mind might not even go to this place. So very simply, boss/target cast bars. It provides the player information about an ability that the boss is currently charging up. Now, off memory, I can't give you an example in RuneScape. Maybe this exists. I think they've started providing this without a cast bar in particular, as in a cast bar, effectively what I'm alluding to is it would appear above or below the unit frame of your target. So within RuneScape, it's a bit fiddly. You have to like unlock your UI and then you can move the unit frame of the target. And I have this moved into a set position. So whenever I look to that set position, I know the boss's HP, and I usually position it near some of my abilities. So a boss or target cast bar would effectively, it's a bit like our channeling bar that has only just been introduced recently to modern RuneScape. Was that about a year ago or so? Year to 2 years ago. A key example would be the asphyxiate ability. When we cast asphyxiate, it now shows the channel. It now shows the cast of that ability on a channeling bar. But yes, it only does that for channeled abilities. So a boss or a target cast bar is for those abilities that a boss is charging up and about to unleash on you. And it'll have a name convention against that. Every spell that a boss has will have a name against that and associated to it, right? This gives the player more information about what's coming up, and they can have a bit more time to react or plan into that scenario. Now, this kind of leads on to another implementation that they could do, or it could come through RuneScape plugins that, if you didn't know, Jagex are exploring the potential of RuneScape plugins and allowing people to API in to the data and form third-party plugins, which us as players can then download and install. Now, that's all the detail we really have on this. But another one linked to that would be boss timers. Now, boss timers, a lot of MMORPGs have boss timers that will show the order of attacks of a boss, and that timer bar will just tick down eventually until it hits 0, and that's when the boss is actually casting or doing that ability. So a prime example could be when you're attacking Solak and you just hit the HP cap and, you know, you're doing virtually no damage to Solak. At some point, he will go and transition into the phase where you can attack his arms and attack his legs, right? So that would be like a phase transition. Now, it isn't necessarily a ability that he's casting, but it's a boss timer. It's something that's about to take place in X amount of seconds, so you can kind of plan your route without just going off feeling. Now, I think this is something, I think the boss or target cast bar would be less controversial. The boss timers is a controversial subject, which really does change how we engage with combat in the game. And some people may argue to not include this in the game because it strips away, it strips away an element of skill in some ways, because you don't have to build up as much muscle memory or experience with a boss fight to understand when a mechanic's coming up, right? You can just follow the boss timers and then associate that to the animation or the transition that the boss makes. Eventually, good players will then ignore timers because it's muscle memory and it just kind of, you know, they just go off the feeling again. But it significantly helps newer players into combat or learning. It significantly helps when you're learning a new boss fight, right? So that one's up for debate. I really just wanted to throw that one in there because a lot of MMOs have this, and it's pretty standard, and RuneScape doesn't. So I'm wondering, like, what's your take on boss timers in RuneScape? Do you feel like it has more pros to cons, or do you feel like it takes away too much immersion or away from the game, or takes away a skill element of the game? I'm really interested in your thoughts on that. And you can be any type of player for this. Like, how does that sound for you trying to learn and get into PVM versus as a veteran player, you already know how to kill every single boss? Can you imagine boss timers being there, or think about a new boss that gets released? Can you imagine what it would feel like having boss timers there? You know, and how that would feel. Again, boss timers, you still need to know what the timer is referring to. It's not going to tell you that. It'll just have a remark, like a name of what that next mechanic is going to be, which is interpreted and named by Jagex, by the developers. But you won't know what that timer is on about until you experience it. So it's not telling you exactly what the mechanic is or how to counter that mechanic. It's just telling you, hey, this is the next mechanic in order, which is about to happen, right? And it'll adapt some bosses, you know, that'll depend on whether you hit a HP cap. And the boss timers will react to that. So it'll react to the pace of damage that you're dealing. And, you know, when you hit past a certain phase, the boss timers will reprioritize, and that phased mechanic will all of a sudden be at the top of the list, and it'll say like 10 seconds away, and then it'll happen, right? So you can really manage your time of how much damage you're going to squeeze into certain windows, or you can prepare for the next phase. It gives you that extra information to reduce the cognitive load and allow you just to crack on with the gameplay. So there's pros and cons to it. Let me know what you think to boss timers in RuneScape. I can see some of this stuff happening with plugins is what I'm alluding to. The next one is something more practical, and it's the buff and debuff bars. I'd be very surprised if I spoke to anyone that said they liked the buff and debuff bar structure in RuneScape. So ultimately, they're extremely inflexible. At the moment, you can only scale up whether all of them are large, all of them are medium, or all of them are small. You can, at the moment, only choose to include or exclude certain groupings of buffs or debuffs, which again, I have done, but that's extremely limited. You can't create bespoke or multiple buff or debuff bars and group up those buffs and debuffs in an order that makes sense to you. There's zero customizability with it. So ultimately, what I'd like to see is some extra bars to allow us to select what we want in said bar, or at least group these up better to let players utilize that in a better way. And custom sizing would be really nice for each bar as well, and allow us to put those wherever we want. You know, there may be some really key buffs that we absolutely need to see. So like the dual tier 95 Nakatra Wand and Orb for magic, When you hit that wand and orb, it'll either apply a debuff or it won't. If it doesn't apply a debuff, it means you can use it again. I want to see that much bigger, and I want to put it in a set place that isn't rotating in order. I want it to be in a set place every single time. So when I hit that wand and orb, boom, I can check. And right now, yes, that is an example that I can check-ish. Usually it's going to be a new debuff that instantly applies in the top of the priority order. But there's plenty of other examples where buffs can get lost. They're constantly moving left to right. I don't want things to move around. It's increasing my cognitive load when I'm trying to play the game and just enjoy the gameplay. I want to put things in place where they stay and where they'll appear if the buff is present, and where they'll disappear if the buff is no longer present. I want to reduce the cognitive load, give us some more customization to allow us to create our own custom bars with our own custom groups, please. So moving on to another big sticking point for me, I want cleaner action bar management. I want more customization with the ability bars, allowing us to create more custom bars, very similar to like buffs and debuffs, just more customization. Allow us to have some transparent elements, or just not show buttons that aren't filled in with an ability. That would be great. Allow us to make certain bars bigger than others. You know, those priority bars versus mobility or utility bars that just needs to be smaller. The ability UI panels for newer players where they can select, read, or bring in an ability to their bars, those UI panels still need to be improved. I've heard the RS guy, Ryan, and others give feedback on this. Abilities should be grouped and clearly labeled between basic, utility situational, or spenders, and ultimates. You know, create groups to allow us to vary what we do there. Or just allow a filter option for players to filter by these options, making that onboarding experience to PVM or PvE more seamless. Another major pain point for me personally, and probably for a lot of players out there who have a 2K or 4K monitor, the in-game upscaling isn't good enough, and it needs to be looked at. It stretches out the UI assets rather than properly upscaling the assets to 2K or 4K for those who play at that resolution. I personally suffer from this, and it does cause headaches and uncomfort when playing for long periods of time. RuneScape is a text-heavy game. Most MMORPGs in general are or play heavy into their UI elements. It's integral to the player experience, having a cleaner, sharper UI. It really makes all the difference to accessibility, comfort, and seamless gameplay. And the last one is probably another controversial one. We kind of have it, but singular, and we kind of had it with damage crystals that you could sign up to and see everyone's damage. I'm not asking for that, but let's get into this one. So right now, a problem, a sticking point, is that it's hard to understand quickly or parse during combat. This effectively means it's hard to understand what parts of your rotation or scenario planning or CD planning is working and what parts aren't. You know, are you pressing your abilities in the right order? Are you combining things correctly to maximize your damage in certain scenarios? You know, and be able to review that post-fight. Without damage meters is the suggestion here. Without a damage meter that breaks down the damage you've done with abilities or passive effects, it can take a lot longer to figure out, or you just have to go off feeling and or repeated experience of whether you phased a boss quick enough or skipped a mechanic. My question to you is, would bringing damage meters into the game be a good move for RuneScape, and will they just come anyway through plugins? How would you feel if they did? Now, I don't need to see other people's damage, as I know this can create a toxic culture as well across an MMORPG player base. As long as I can see my own accurately and I'm openly willing to share that on stream, personally, but that's my choice. So as long as I can see mine accurately and I can choose to share it with people if I want to, then I'm fine with that. Without putting too much overthinking into it, I'm fine with that. I personally want more information about what I'm doing. Is what I'm doing right? Then I can go and have a chat with my mate in Discord and show them my breakdown and go, oh, I'm really struggling on this fight at this part, and this is my gear, like what's going on? And then with them, I can kind of talk that through, and we can analyze that through a breakdown of damage or through just at least damage per tick that I'm doing during that fight compared to maybe what they're doing, and we can break that down. Now, a good start overall is that everyone is going to be getting access to rune metrics later this year, and that's what maybe some people might refer to. So rune metrics exists, but this only gives a DPM number, a damage per minute number, and it also doesn't give breakdowns of damage. I want to get more information, and also, where possible, have damage per tick instead. Considering GCDs follow ticks, and this is a unit of time which regulates all server-side actions on RuneScape. I just want to understand what I'm doing, if what I'm doing is better compared to my last pull, and I don't have to just go off feeling. I can combine the feeling with actual data, which I'm seeing live, and I can correspond the two and be like, oh yeah, okay, this is why this is feeling good, because look at my damage per tick in that situation, or when I hit my CD there, my damage per tick ramped up in that scenario, so that made a lot of sense. Or, oh, when I am going crazy on my full CD rotation, am I consistently doing it? And am I consistently hitting the same DPM or damage per tick number across that session, across that period of time, right? Let me know what you think to damage meters in RuneScape. And I just want to add really quick, I know I'm making a lot of comparisons to other games here, especially like the likes of World of Warcraft, maybe Final Fantasy XIV, modern MMORPGs that, people might look at and try and compare with RuneScape because there's ability bars, right? But yeah, I've used those as inspiration. Even the WoW default UI doesn't have some of the elements I'm referring to, like custom or multiple groups of buff bars or customization on ability bars. A lot of this has been done through plugins in the past on those other games too. And just a bonus feature here, how about a big improvement to the group UI? Let me know in the comments again, what would you like to see brought into the group UI? Right now, we can join groups. It's very clunky to join and leave groups and set what bosses you want to do so it works with instances. All of the UI around that is extremely painful for the player. And you're not really getting a lot of information from your teammates either through that UI, and it's framed with the typical RuneScape frame, right? Which I just don't think that needs to be on every single element of our UI. Like some areas of that frame, some parts of the UI just don't need a frame around it, all right? Let's add more transparency to our elements where it makes sense. Right now, there's just a overall feature for either full transparency or no transparency across your entire interface. Give us some customizability with that as well. Allow us to make certain parts of our UI transparent and other parts not. Maybe like our inventory, which we like to be, in general, a lot of the player base likes that to be more opaque because you can see your items more clearly in those areas. But other areas, we don't need to have all of that extra solid brown color or blue color in the past around those UI elements. We want it to be transparent, like that would actually improve how it looks and allow us to still see more of the game behind it. Just another feature there, which I think could massively improve the game. Now, for a lot of these pain points, guys, RuneScape plugins may solve this if the data is readily available and Jagex allow it to be used. Are there any other pain points for you personally? Let me and Jagex know in the comments below. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. Good luck with your goals on this game and any other game, and I'll see you guys in the next one.